Oh, you. It's currently Thursday. It's February 27th, 2014. And this is Day 9 Daily number 685, where we're going to learn to be a better gamer 2v2 styling. Oh my god, a 2v2, that's right. In today's episode, we're going to look at some 2 vs 2 games on a map called... Oh my god, it's called Iron Curtain Brood War. Is it Sacred Pact in StarCraft 2? Every time I look at this map, I can't help but think about the Brood War 1. Great 2v2 game played where one of the players died and his ally went on to win the 1v2 in a really epic long Brood War game. Has nothing to do with today's show. What a tangent. In this episode, we're going to look at some 2v2 games on a map, talk a little bit about some of the fundamental principles of 2v2 and how it played out. 2v2, much different beast than 1v1 that doesn't get looked at a lot, doesn't even really get showcased that much, but in the TotalBiscuit's SHOUTCraft clan wars, they have Starbow in there, they have regular SC2 1v1s in there, and they have 2 vs 2 as one of the matchups. So we'll be doing a little bit of a look at that. If you want to see more of this stuff in action, mlg.tv/SHOUTCraft. Let's go ahead and drink a little bit. We're ready. In exciting news, tomorrow I'm going to make a bad decision. I'm going to be streaming a game. I'm terrible and haven't updated the official games yet, because after lunch at around 1 p.m. for around an hour, I am going to play my good friend Aaron's biofeedback horror game Nevermind. It currently has a Kickstarter going for it. And I think it's raised like 60,000, 70,000 thus far. So in an effort to support her reaching her funding goal, and because I know you love seeing me shit myself on air, I will be playing this horror game. God, it's going to be horrible. But we're going to do it. Biofeedback means that I get hooked up to certain like heart rate sensors that plug into my computer, and the game reads those in and makes the game scarier the more it detects that I'm scared. Get your GIF makers ready, because I'm going to scream. And hopefully we're going to be able to also even display like the heart rate on there. It's going to be awesome. It's called Nevermind. Nevermind, the game, by Aaron Reynolds. Alright, let's talk about 2 vs 2. Shall we? Let's talk about 2 vs 2. So to do so, I want to come to the main screen. Let's introduce our players real fast. We have Xenocider here. We have Suppy here. They might be switched, but, you know, this player's name is USA Xenocider. So I'm going to assume, for the sake of reasonableness, that this is Xenocider. Up here is Lucky from guess what team? Oh, you guessed well. It's Incredible Miracle. And we have Squirtle, the favorite turtle. But not of Twitch Plays Pokemon. The favorite one of many folk who got the chance to watch MVP vs. Squirtle. Okay, so, to talk about this a little bit, I'm first going to just tell you what Xenocider and Suppy are going to do. They're going to be going for 10 pool speed Zergling and ultra fast Hellions, like gas barracks factory Hellions. Why, you might say? The most important thing in 2 vs 2 is splitting up your opponent's army. On this map, on Iron Curtain, or Sacred Pact I think it's called, on this map we can see that the distance between these allies over here is enormous from ground. I mean, this is a huge amount of space. And simply being able to get in between there means you have to try to win a 2v1 twice. If you have split your opponent up, then it's much easier to win. So most builds on open maps like this, on maps where there's not some sort of shared entrance, we see that the Zerg player going 10 pool, this Terran player going for Hellions, can easily control the center, where there's actually a movement path in between here, and most importantly, this entire region along. Now, for the most part, I've actually shared what seems to be the entirety of the opening build order from the players on the right side of the map. 2v2 is much less about opening build orders in many circumstances. It's actually much less about build orders in general, and much more about the tactics and what you're doing with your units and how you're positioning them and how you're changing. There's a lot of adaptation and stuff that goes on. We're going to be talking about that rather slowly in this game and a little bit more in the next game. So I'm just going to use a term consistently. This right team is going to be the aggressor, and these teams are going to be the defender. They're going to be the ones trying to hold on. In general, a good way to categorize builds in 2v2 is, are you going to be an aggressor or a defender? It's kind of like control versus aggro in card games. And there's builds that versus some you will play defensively and versus others you will play very aggressively. But for the purposes of this game, we're going to be seeing these players on the left be much more of the defender's role. But already begin to think about the problem that a Protoss-Zerg combination is going to have with this ugly, hideous-looking mess. Generally speaking, Zerg players will be much more on the aggressive end, and Zerg players are going to have a hell of a difficult time both being aggressive and doing anything else at the same time. Like anything else. A Terran player going Hellion is still building SCVs. It's good. Still making some forward progress. Eventually it's going to have enough money to maybe build an extra barracks or a command center or whatnot. But the Zerg, 10 pool speed straight up, you're broke. So in a certain sense, after we get past the opening stage, our aggressor buddies are going to have to spend some serious effort deciding what or who is going to be the follow-up. So we can see Squirtle warmly embracing his role. Actually, Lucky and Squirtle doing a lot of good coordination here. This is something that's going to look weird now, especially given that I said it's 10 pool lings. But it's going to make a lot more sense in a bit. In general, if you're spread out really far, it makes a lot of sense for you both to commit to aggression or both to commit to some sort of defensive play. So, here's how I want to do this. There's 4 players to keep track of in a 2v2. What I want to do first is I want to watch the opening build of the aggressors and talk about it from their point of view. So let's go to the Xenocider cam. And actually, can I Alt-F this? Perfect. So we see the Terran player here, very swiftly teching up to Hellions. We see Xenocider getting himself metabolic boost, and you're noticing almost immediately, look at the money up here, virtually broke. But a very intelligent question is, who do we go for first? Whoever we can do the most damage against. It won't really have anything to do with closeness. This timing just looks exactly like someone who's going for a hatch first play. So the fact that Xeno's poking in here for a moment and pulling back, love this. Now, we're actually done analyzing Xenocider. He's not going to do anything except build Zerglings and add larvae. Great, perfect, cool. We'll be switching down to the Terran player at the south side. Now, if you've never heard of Hellion Zergling, then you totally haven't played 2v2, man. Hellion Zergling is just the staplest of staples. You just do it, man. Already we're seeing Lucky struggle. In a 1v1 context, Xenocider is boned. In a 1v1 context, we would identify Lucky as having more drones, already having defensive infrastructure, and not really being behind on anything but Zergling speed. And we'd look over at Xenocider and say, wow, 10 drones. Only advantage you have is speed, you're dead. This is why we don't see 10 pool speed being a really high commitment in 1v1s. But here, this is just an absolutely fantastic play. He's killing it off because our buddy, our good old fancy buddy, Suppy in this case, is able to reinforce us to where we can do some real permanent damage. So as we're looking at this right now, Xenocider and Suppy are going to apply as much pressure as humanly frickin' possible and not do dramatic tech upping. And I think that this is kind of, I mean, certainly It's easy to do, to be like, alright, cool, we've killed them off, I'm going to expand. This is a black hole. There's no knowledge as to what's going on here. And this is the moment where we can really highlight the difference between the economies of the two players. Where we see, actually, let me not phrase it as economy, we can see the difference between the sort of base setup. Squirtle has a lot of tech, has the most probes in the game. Lucky is very well defended and actually pretty even with the opponent. Actually pretty even with his Zerg counterpart. And we see Suppy down in south. Just a little bit behind. But there's some really important things to notice. The gas. No gas. No gas. A gas geyser, but nothing being mined. And really, it's one set of gas for the aggressor team. This is going to be really critical as we're stepping later on down the lines in the game. And one of the most overlooked components of where to find an advantage in this spot. Typically, people just die now. This is what happens. Death is what becomes of the enemy team. But Lucky and Squirtle have a tremendous edge in terms of gas. So if I'm on Team EG right now, what I'm thinking is, oh god, oh geez, we're in kind of a thin position. And a lot of it is because of counterplay like this that I'm going to kind of ignore. Very often, you should look at this and say, wow, we are not in good shape at all. And we see that this will often be some of the best choices that you can make. Is just being as absolutely countery as humanly possible. And even in this context, I would not really broadly say that I think this EG team is in the winning position by any stretch of the imagination.
Our allies are...
So to do this, I want to come over to the other side of things and talk about just the opening a little bit. Doink, from Squirtle's point of view. Squirtle's buddy is going for an early expand. Immediately that means that his opponent or his ally's speed is going to be super behind. So what on earth is Lucky going to be able to do in the meantime? Well, he's got to defend on his own, so getting a Mothership Core very early is essential. Getting Warp Gate early is very essential. But this seems like a very peculiar move. A Stargate. I mean, there's Zerglings that have even been seen. Why on earth would you go for Stargate in this spot? I like to do data-driven analysis in a lot of circumstances. I like all my comments to be something where we can use numbers to calculate. We have games that we can reference. I can point out players or cite varying timing connections. But here is how I'm going to do one of the most effective bits of analysis ever. I'm going to go... Well, just fucking look at him. Just look. Stargate is just now finishing up. Zerg player. Remember how I said that if a Zerg's being sufficiently aggressive, he can't do anything? He can't get a queen and a spore crawler in particular. One queen, he's ready to die. Down here, what on earth can this player be do? Well, he almost has a second barracks done. In fact, one of the most common forms of counterplay is just for the non-Zerg defending player to go air. Protoss goes air, Terran goes, or Protoss goes for Oracles or Void Rays, and or would go for Banshees in this sort of spot. So this I actually love. Almost all aggression can be dealt with very, very nicely with this sort of odd counterplay. And I talked a lot about the fact that there's only one gas geyser operating for the entire team. So you can leverage this a lot as team defender. So much so. You can do things like... actually, I'll do that in the second game that we look at. I don't want to talk about transferring resources right now. Obviously, extra gateways make tons of sense. We need to be holding off 2 players. We need flexibility, so we should be able to defend this. Here's just a tactical error that Squirtle makes. He sends this Mothership Core up, and sees all these things move down. I mean, this is just very basic stuff. This needs to come home. And also we see that countering with the Oracle is amazingly effective. This is just basic positional issues. So where the mothership core is more important than any build that anyone is doing. We see units move down this way. We need to reposition the mothership core. Consequently, you can now, just by basic deduction, know that these Overlord positions are absolutely critical. This Overlord would really be lovely over here. Slightly redundant to this one, but still absolutely fantastic to have there. And as a result, Squirtle is going to have his main wrecked. Now, here's an interesting question. Why would Squirtle... Someone might make an argument, but come on. Lucky has almost no defenses against this Hellion Zergling. I mean, sure, the spines can repel, but I mean, if the Hellions park here, the spawning pool's undefended. The mothership core is free defense. The Hellion Zerglings can't even shoot at it, so it's great to have over on that side. And let's even further suppose that I can calculate that the Ling Hellion is probably going to be able to do a lot of damage and maybe even kill Lucky. It is okay to let your opponent or let your ally die. Letting your ally die is such an effective technique in this game. I don't mean in the asshole way. I mean genuinely, truly, letting him die is great. Let's talk about this moment right here. Here is a moment where two players, represented by the Zerglings and the Hellions, are bashing down on one player, and we have all these Zerglings coming to help. Would it be better to take these Zerglings and counterattack here? Well, I mean, we've already killed one Terran player with Oracle. It's very reasonable to say, you know what? You're eventually going to hold this off. I'm going to counterattack Zerg and kill Zerg because you're killing with the Oracle. I think that that's a wrong decision. But still, I want to plant in your mind that that's an okay thing to consider here. Letting your ally die. But in this spot, in the defending team's shoes, in Squirtle's shoes, what I'd be saying is Lucky is, okay, they clearly don't have good anti-air because, well, because of this. This is clear, clean evidence that our Oracle Harass is actually effective. So, we're doing plenty of harmful damage to them. And we can likely hurt the Zerg in a little bit too. In fact, these Oracles might even be our strongest play. So I completely understand this idea of initially moving down to try to help out the ally. But now we're actually going to see some really sick counterplay. So, by virtue of letting his kind ally take some serious damage, Lucky is able to isolate and move down and provide a fairly big threat to the Xenocider Suppy combo. We talked a little bit about positional mistakes being pretty big, and why I wasn't as big a fan of this sort of counterattack. I'm even less a fan of it. This is where, oops, sorry, the coloration just gave up on me. Alright, I'm sorry, I gotta rewind a little bit more. This moment, right here, it is already too late for Lucky to try to decide to go up here. Already too late. As we can see by the fact that once Lucky did decide to go for a counterattack, these are all hot on the heels. So we're moving up along this way, and we have no vision in this general area, but we have seen all the Hellion Zergling move. So we know that it's somewhere in this region. So let's just do some basic vision reasoning. This Overlord lets us know if the attack is moving north, and we'll have time to prepare. This base will let us know if they're ever over here. So these Zerglings are walking effectively into a death trap. Now, if I rewind it back to 610, at this moment in time, we just saw this force move down. So here now, with this vision, it's appropriate to try to send a counterattack here, or at the very least, get into position in this spot, which would be located right here on the main screen, to sort of bide the time. So I'm going to go back to the Squirtle cam. He moves out. Seeing these move here, this is the time that would permit a strong counterattack. If Lucky goes now, Team Red has to either commit here and suffer heavy losses on Zerg's side of things, or pull back. But obviously going all the way here and then all the way back, there's plenty of time to say, I don't want to do this decision. And again, Lucky is actually slowly getting money. Has plenty of defense here. The counterattack advantage that we're going to see out of Lucky coming up is sick. This very initial moment is kind of like, meh. So this counterattack, I'm sort of, nah. And here's the moment that I want to just sort of stop and emphasize more than any other moment in part 1. And by the way, I'm really sorry if there's anyone colorblind, because I'm switching between like red and green like really vividly. I'm just very sorry. Armies are super huge if you're both being an aggressor. If you're both doing some, let's say, Ling Hellion stuff, and if you're able to, say, isolate some units to kill off, that's great. If you're both going Ling Hellion and you can successfully kill off like 10 of their Hellions, then wow, you're doing the same thing and you have more stuff and you're eventually going to overrun because you'll split them in half and then you win the 2v1 twice. But in this position, one of our team is the defending team. One of the teams are not going crazy, balls to the wall aggression from start to finish. And the advantage that Team Squirtle has, or excuse me, Team Incredible Miracle has, is in counter-attacks and counterplay. I want to say counterplay because it doesn't necessarily involve counterattacks. We've talked about the fact that Zerg and Terran can't possibly have that much anti-air. Can't possibly. If these oracles went into this main base right now, they would crush. And this, I think, is a key misstep that Team Incredible Miracle made that was just a gift. I think this is very smart for our Hellion Linging player to be trying to reduce the unit count, because that extends the advantage of what they're trying to do, which is to just have a whole lot of map control awesomeness. I mean, look at this. Following the Lings, awesome. Pushing the Lings back, awesome. Breaking a few Lings off, awesome. Squirtle going in here, not a bad play at all. Terran's being bashed down, but this Zerg has been a completely open freaking target for a long time. And of course, I just think this is an excellent, excellent move. I actually think we'll stop here. But to be honest, there hasn't been an exceptional amount of development from these players' build orders point of view. I mean, it's basically been Ling Hellion from one team, and then some counterattack Zergling, some counterattack Oracling, and yet there's a lot going on in terms of the positioning and the tactics. We see that Overlord Vision is just one of the most important things for any team to have, and this notion of counterplay, because the aggression team has functionally one gas geyser mining. They're very stilted in terms of their options for air. So when we come back, we're going to watch more of the mid-game, and then watch another game. We're just going to watch. We're just going to do stuff, okay? Just listen to me. Just look. Stay tuned and stuff. On a break.